Subbiah Sundaram. I run products for HYCU. I've been with the organization from the start of HYCU. I think I've had the opportunity to talk with some of you in the past. So glad to again connect again. Satya covered quite a lot about the overall, what does it mean to do a true AI infrastructure and how could we protect? There are different deployment models customers do in AI. I'll cover some of them and how we protect. At the end of the day, our focus is data because we think that's the core which drives the whole operation, right? So that's what we are looking core. When we talk about data, one of the things I want to add to what Satya was saying earlier, when we talk about data, it's just not the data alone, it's the data, the configuration of the different services which the customers actually have. And so when you think in terms of recovery, when you think in terms of data resilience, it's the entire set, not just the sources alone. So I want to let you know. Before going specific into some of the AI, I just want to give a quick recap about our platform itself. Brian did a very high-level overview early on. Now I'm going to double-click a little bit and then share with you. As all of you guys know, there is quite a lot of data sources customers actually have. A big problem which our customers have told us is half the time they don't know what they actually have. Sounds a little crazy, but that's a reality, right? If many of you might remember, that's why in the traditional on-prem world, people used to have the application discovery mechanisms. This, especially with the adoption of cloud services and the adoption of SaaS, this has become a big problem for customers. The first thing we help customers, we don't even charge for that, by the way. We help customers discover their entire data estate, which is all their SaaS, PaaS, DBaaS, IaaS, all of their services we iteratively discover. That's the first element to the customer. We discover, help them visualize, auto-categorize, and tell them what's protected and not protected. That's the first step. Especially when you think in terms of AI, and the breadth of data sources their customers have, this helps them quite a bit. That's the first one. And this is not a one-time thing, as you guys can imagine. It's a continuous operation, and we help them. That's the first part. Obviously, once you do that, we are a company of focus on data protection. We help them protect the data. The key thing I'll probably tell you, our focus is, again, protecting it extremely efficiently, and that's the big thing we focus on. The breadth of coverage, which we'll talk about, but it's also the efficiency we deliver in. The third part is around recovery. At the end of the day, the only reason customers are protecting is to be able to recover. One of the beauty of HYCU, our cloud platform, is that we are able to recover the data granularly, because like Keith was asking, hey, what happens if there are some individual JSON files corrupted, things like that. We can get you the entire data set. We can get you even granularly the single JSON file which you messed up. So we can do at different levels, we do that. This is just not at the file system level. Even at the SaaS level, we can do the granularity which the customers desire. The other one, which there was a lot of discussion on in the last one, was around the migration portability for customers. We don't think of it as a migration. We think of it as a data portability for customers, because customers want the freedom of choice, and we are there to help them with that particular aspect. That's what we do. We do all of this capability for a wide range of data sources. We have over 90 plus integrations today, right? That is something why is this actually important, especially if you're doing a true enterprise. You will actually have it. I'll share with you some data points which we actually have as we go further. All of this, one of the constant requests we get from customers is that data resiliency, when in terms of from a ransomware, things like that, especially even in the world of AI and some of the SaaS, customers are right now extremely worried about protection against ransomware, malware, things like that. The good thing is we have HYCU R Shield. This is essentially the way our cyber recovery solution. It is not an independent product. It is something we have built into the fabric of our HYCU R Cloud platform, right? So our R Shield, which is a cyber resiliency solution, is built into the platform itself, so it's not an independent solution. Just a little diversion here, but I wanted you guys to have not big, since all of you guys are not very familiar with HYCU, I wanted to give you a little deeper into what we do. So now let me get into specific in one of the AI. You guys are all experts here in the AI space. Satya talked about one of the things with building AI models and what customers are doing, things like that. One of the other more popular use cases you guys know in a lot of customers is creating a RAG workflow, right? Essentially, how do you train your existing LLMs, not train, enrich your existing LLMs with additional internal data sets? And this is pretty much you go into most large organizations, they are running an in-house in-house system, RAG system, so that we can actually enrich it with their internal data sets. This is a very common one, but one of the core elements in this thing is the vector database, right? Because how do you actually enrich your information? It's the information stored in your vector database. The thing we are very happy to say is that HYCU is the only one which actually today is one of the first enterprise backup vendors to be able to deliver backup for vector databases. When we talk about vector databases, we talk about things like Pinecone and Redis. This is in addition to even some of the classic databases actually have vector information stored right now. We can actually protect them too. But these guys, specifically Pinecone, as you know, was specifically focused on vector database. Redis, even though it's an in-memory thing, has a significant vector database focus. So that's vector data focus. And that's one of the reasons I think we started with those things. In addition to those two databases, a big part for a lot of our customers is that the additional data sources which actually play a part, right? It's not just the public cloud data sets, it's a lot of the other SaaS data sets which also come into picture. Let's talk about it here.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second
Sure.
there on that
Please.
previous slide? So this is Dave Graham again from ML Comments. So how do you start to handle this idea where lots of these storage companies or storage platforming companies are starting to embed their own vector derivatives into their databases? I'm thinking about the VAST of the world, the Pures, the NetApps, or whatever with InsideX and all the things that they're ending up doing. Because that starts to change your locus of data, it starts to change your locus of where these where this metadata is, where these embeddings are, is something that's very, very circumspect to the data itself, right? And it's now embedded in a system that you may or may not have direct access to, a shim to, you name it. So how are you looking forward to that, or how are you trying to understand that, especially in a I'm hosting my own cloud kind of world?
Totally. So it's an excellent question there. So the way we, one of the strengths of HYCU platform, I'll tell you, is that even though we talked a lot about the cloud, we actually not just actually do public cloud and SaaS, we also do a lot of the on-prem infrastructure. Talk about the large data file systems and object storage is running on-prem and the virtual machine application infrastructure, we protect that. And that is one of the benefits of us. So it's when we talk about our overall solution, we can cover a breadth of data sources for our customers. That's how we look at it. And there was a question early on to saying, hey, what happens when the customer data is distributed across lots of different, not just one place, not just one cloud, it's across the spread. The beauty of HYCU is that from a single pane of glass, the customer is able to manage the entire data set. That is one of our unique strengths. And that's why we have had a relatively very rapid growth in this space, as because the customer is able to protect data spread across multiple different locations. And that's how we look at it. That said, I mean, every storage vendor is trying to add it. As they start having new APIs, we are starting to integrate. I would not say that we are doing everything possible, but that is a significant effort going on in this space.
I have one more question on that. This is Kelvin Hendricks Parker, CTO 6 Feet Up. The solutions you mentioned, you've talked a lot about pod native type aspects, but what about if someone's doing kind of roll your own or Kubernetes, they're doing Postgres and PG Vector? How does that play in with these tools?
Okay. So, for example, if customers want to run a Postgres on their own and run Kubernetes, for example, let's say they're using GKE, and it could be on the cloud, I'm using GKE, it could be on-prem too, it doesn't matter. And if they're running Postgres along with GKE, that is something we absolutely support today. That is natively supported in the platform for customers who want to do that. Right? We are using a services as an easy example to talk through, but we absolutely support customers running their homegrown stuff.
So Ray Lucchese, Silverton Consulting. What's the integration between HYCU and Pinecone or Redis? I mean, so post PG Vector and things of that nature. You can do a lot of things from a standard database perspective to download the database and things of that nature. Do you have something special with respect to Pinecone and Redis? Integration wise.
And from an integration perspective, we are using their standard APIs and using their standard export methods, and as each of these solutions offer. That's what currently we are doing. We have a lot of other integration discussions going on, but I would not venture to discuss the future. But as of right now, that's the way we do it.
Okay.
Cool. So we talked about the RAG. I mean, like even when it comes to data warehouses, right? People typically think of it as one monolithic data warehouse. But as you guys are very familiar with it, there are tons of data sources which feed into this big data warehouses. The thing is, as Satya mentioned earlier, it is not just one thing, it's multiple streams of data coming from different locations, different data sources there. Some of the things Satya covered earlier, things around object stores and databases, and he covered there. The thing is that we do have a lot of customers using SaaS, and they are extremely critical data source because, for example, BigQuery has over 80 different SaaS applications pumping data into it. That becomes very critical for customers. The question is that a lot of people think SaaS is actually fully protected by the SaaS vendor. As you guys know, they do protect the infrastructure, but the data is customer responsibility. You guys are very familiar with it. And the SaaS data is very vulnerable. When I talked about vulnerable, people sometimes really, is that a problem for customers? I'll share with you we actually did a study. This is done across 500 different customers. And this is part of the SaaS resilience report, which actually we just published, done by independent study here. The thing which pretty much if you look at this number of SaaS applications, 96% of them have definitely increased the consumption of SaaS. It's not a question if, it's the question of how fast is it growing, and that is something there in every customer, right? And when we talk about 46% of them have significant increase, because one of the beauty of SaaS, it's easy to use, and it also means it's also easy to turn on, and lots of customers end up turning it on. And this is just IT tracked SaaS, I would probably say, because there are other SaaS which is shadow IT, shadow SaaS that's still absolutely there going on, and the customers are trying to get them under control, and we are helping them with. That's with our SaaS adoption there. The second part, one is the adoption itself is growing. Second thing people ask us, is security incidents really a problem in SaaS? This is real data coming from customers, not us saying something, right? 65% of them have said some data breach. 65% of them, I said there is some data breach in the past year. That's what they said. And the average number of SaaS application data breach incidents in the past year, just asking the customer, how many have you had? The average was 2, right? It's a significant impact customers are having. When we talk about the number of SaaS and people say, is it really growing? Here's just a data point for you guys. Last time when we ran, 139 was the average. And right now this year it's 159, the number of average SaaS applications growing. So the rate of growth is absolutely there. The larger the number of data SaaS storage sources, the more risk the customer actually has. That is a problem. And when things go down, what is the level of disruption will actually happen? And 65% have said, because of the 65% that have experienced a data breach in the past year, 87% of them have some level of disruption, right? And one of the things customers told us is that on an average, not even a high average, they said it takes the minimum of 5 days to recover. And each day, on an average, costs the minimum $400,000. This is just the cost of the recovery thing. It doesn't include all the people, time lost and so on. That's something like that. So that's the level of impact customers actually having. So what is that have people generally done here? If you look at the backup vendors, on an average, people all the backup enterprise backup vendors, there are 5 is the number of SaaS they've added in the last year. That just doesn't, because there are over 30,000 SaaS applications in the world. There are over 35,000 exactly, to be the right number. Over 35,000 SaaS applications. And there are only 5 being added. At that pace, you cannot do that. That's why HYCU, our cloud, we have built a platform that customer can add new data sources very, very quickly. And one thing I probably want to add here is that the way we actually leverage AI to build our SaaS modules, if people are interested in that particular one. We built the entire model so that they can accelerate the development. That's one of the reasons. For example, there was a vendor who said, oh, we are going to support Atlassian. So Atlassian, as you know, is one company, but they have I think some of you are focused on the DevOps side of the house. I can tell you this. Atlassian is a company which actually has lots of different modules. Jira Search, Jira Service Management, Trello, Bitbucket, and so many other things they actually have. The vendor who actually said they're going to support Atlassian supported one SaaS, one Jira alone over the 12-month period, right? Whereas in HYCU, if you look at it, this is the number of protected SaaS applications which we actually have today. And so the thing which we have actually added, right, the breadth at the speed at which we add is significant here. And this just to give you the power of our platform and why it's critical here. If you have any questions, always stop me. Sorry, I get excited and continue to talk. So the big part here is that, especially with some of the things with people get, how does some of the data warehouses get fed, right? They have information coming from some of the SaaS applications. Let's say, for example, they have tickets coming, issues coming from Jira. They have a service management from Jira Service Management, or they have data coming from Box being fed into that, or they have some of the logs fed in from the different applications into the infrastructure, into some of their services. The question is that how secure and compliant they are. We can actually keep the data very secure. We obviously protect, as we talked earlier, we protect against ransomware. The original source, as well as your data warehouse, we can actually keep it safe against ransomware. That is something we do. And we support a wide range of clouds, which the customers actually cloud for the data sources where the customers keep the data. That is something we do. And this is a key part here is that it's done at scale. The big part for customers is that can you actually deliver it at scale? And what is the level of SLA can you actually provide? That is something we do. It's the breadth of coverage. It's the question of can we actually give you freedom from where the data is stored and how fast can you actually recover?
Subbiah,
A big part. But
Guy Courier here. Future. So, data protection in SaaS, it's kind of obvious now, but I didn't realize how crazy it must be. But it sounds like the key to addressing by crazy, I mean, just you alluded to it earlier, 10 different ways, 20 different, 30 different ways to connect, to access the data, formats, like all this other kind of stuff. Like it's every SaaS vendor is going to be a little bespoke. They have their own infrastructure anyway, blah, blah, blah. So if you're using even 4 or 5 major SaaS applications as an enterprise, good Lord, the exponential complexity of it boggles my mind anyway. But I feel like you sprinkled a little magic AI pixie dust on this when you said we use AI to, form our connections. Is that, maybe that's an unfair way to state it, but is that more or less how you are addressing that craziness?
That's a great question. So AI actually helps us accelerate it, but a fundamental thing which we have to do here is to build a platform which allows us to, it's extendable modular platform, right? There are 2 aspects to that particular one. We have made the platform.
Now you've used the magic pixie word platform. So explain what you mean by that.
Totally.
Yeah.
So the way HYCU R Cloud is actually built, the core data services, meaning things around like the policy, the scheduling, the databases, how do we manage, track, the retention, all that stuff is done in the core platform itself. Given that, let's say tomorrow you have your own magic application, right? And if you want to protect it, the way we have done is that we have modularized. You can create your module. A customer can create the module, the partner can create a module, or HYCU can create a module. That's the level of flexibility we have actually provided. It's a very simple, small set of code which only focuses on the SaaS application itself. They don't have to worry anything about data protection. They just have to say what's the data structure of the SaaS application, what the APIs they have, and things like that. And then we will automatically be able to create the module for that, right? So we will automatically, because once you understand data structure, the reason we need to know the data structure, then we build a backup solution. We want to build a granular, deep data protection, not necessarily just a dump and restore. That's easy, right? I mean, that's not good backup solution or more.
Okay, so that's awesome. So then next week, the SaaS vendor makes a change. And then at the end of the year, they do a major upgrade. Each one of those can break that integration.
That's an excellent question there. So one of the things as part of a lot of times you hit the nail on the head. A lot of people think is adding SaaS is very easy. It's just a one-time operation. It's not a one-time operation, right? It's a continuous integration with the new services which are coming up and keeping it up to date and making sure nothing breaks. The good thing is that I'll tell you, of working with so many of the 90 plus integrations, in general, people have the fundamental principle we do is that we only use APIs to do integration. We don't do any backdoor because once you do backdoor is the problem. So only go through the APIs. That's number one. We do follow the vendor's best practices when we do that thing. That's secondary there. Even with that, there are some special cases when we do have issues with the partner changing the API without recognizing the impact on the side impact there. But in general, this is one of the big effort which HYCU has taken as the continuous validation that nothing breaks, especially in a SaaS, because those are continuously updated, and we got to do that. That is that's one of the beauty of how we have done it, and at the scale at which we have done is magical with the platform.
Yeah. So do you have an internal SLA or something similar so that you can say, okay, we detect the break because it's just inevitable. We detect the break within this amount of time or within an hour or something, and we pledge a repair within a day. And so if your snapshots are at this interval, you may have this gap, or whatever.
That's a great question. So the way we do is that I wish it was every hour. The good thing is that we, as part of our cloud operations, continuously, we do actually monitor any breakage in backups. Well, it's actually because typically the first thing you see is the sign that something backups start failing in a particular environment when things happen. So we do actually continuously track that. That is one thing we do. I wish the answer was like within an hour I'll fix it. No answer.
Oh yeah, that was my magic pixie dust. Go ahead.
So that is not the case. But the thing is that because we are continuously monitoring it, and because we are using API, the number of times we have seen this, because we have done this for many years now, number of times this is like probably 2 or 3 in the entire last 12 plus months, I would probably say. So the times it breaks is small. The key things would be is that when it breaks typically within a couple of days, we are able to update because it's completely transparent to the customer, except for the initial failures. We will, as soon as we detect it, we fix it, update the platform, and then the next set of backups automatically catch on. That's the way we do.
Okay, I want to be clear. I think all of that is really reasonable. And I think you have to have this cascade of events. Well, maybe it's just 2 steps, which is number 1, there being a break in the integration, and then number 2 being an incident at the time of a break, that it would really be a case of data loss, and that's probably a really low probability occurrence. But that is, as an application manager in an enterprise, the sort of thing that I would be thinking about is all the bad experiences I've had in the past with various solutions, whether homegrown or otherwise, of actual data loss because there was an integration that was broken and no one noticed for a month.
Totally. And I think you hit the nail on the head. A lot of people, that's why they think I can write a script and I'll dump it every month and it's good enough. Like, nope, it's actually more complicated than that, right? You said it there. And the other thing for us, I will tell you also, is that let's say typically the vendor doesn't break everything. They break 1 or 2 APIs, or the behavior of an API is typically what they do. So even when we do, we back up everything we can. And if there are 1 or 2 things failure, we mark it and we continue on, because that way we can come and catch up later. That's how the smarts are built into the system.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Cool. That's a quick thing. 2 other things I'll mention, and I probably will give time for questions. One of the things which HYCU does very differently than many other people is the data itself, right? When we talk about data, typically people, especially when you're running AI, people are very, as you all know, classic enterprises are right now paranoid and they want to have control of the data they do, which is good for the production data. They don't think in terms of backup. We are a fully managed service. So people say, oh, so you own the data. What we tell customers is that you should always own the data, never give up the access to the data. That is a big thing which HYCU does. We give the customer, make sure that even the backup data is always with the customer. Obviously, you don't want to put it along with the production data. You want to keep it separate and make sure it's worm locked, make sure it's fully isolated from any access and things like that. That is something HYCU automatically does it for you. So that is something we actually do, but we make sure the data is always with the customer, because we don't want the customer to ever take our risk. I mean, they should be completely under their control, and that's what we do. It's a big difference compared to many others, because a lot of other people take the storage from public cloud vendors and repackage it and sell it to customers on a premium. We don't want to do that. We say customers, you can get it much more cheaper directly from the cloud vendor. Go ahead and get it, and then we will help you keep the data safe in your own control. That is something we do. Yeah. This is different than most others. That's why we explicitly call it out. Okay. So this is, again, when we talk about that, people say, where can you store the data? Where can you keep the backup data? You guys heard Satya talk about data domain as running on the public clouds. That is a choice. But in addition, we can support all of the hyperscalers. We can support other SaaS, other S3 compatible vendors like Wasabi, Cloudian, OVH Cloud, and so many other vendors we actually support. And the good thing here is that in all of these vendors, we support not just one tier of storage, we support all of their tiers of storage for the customer. That is one of the big benefits here. And we can support all of these different SaaS, being able to protect it onto these storage there. Yeah. Just coming to a conclusion here, and we probably will summarize and leave it open with the floor. AI is hot, and lots of customers are doing. The good thing we are seeing is that as data protection is not the first thing many customers think when they go use their AI projects. But as they're going into production, as some of these large data warehouses are going into production in the cloud, customers are realizing that they have to protect them. That's the trigger right now. If you guys probably, I'm sure many of the data protection vendors don't talk about it because this has not been top of mind for customers. But we are starting to see that as customers going production, they're seeing a need to do that, especially in the compliance industry, and being able to get to a good data model, data library, being able to get the copy of the model and what it was, along with the data sets, along with it being able to prove it to compliance for their regulatory needs. That is something there. And we got to keep it safe, and that is there. HYCU is there to help them. Many of you guys asked, can you get to a particular checkpoint? Absolutely, we work with it. Everything we do in HYCU is through the REST API. This is why it sounds a little probably crazy for some people. We back up all of their data repositories too, like GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket. Their orchestration tools, like, for example, if you end up using like a Terraform cloud provider, Terraform providers, or if you end up doing things like Circle CI for some of your DevOps management, you protect all of those infrastructure too, not just the core data. People think of object storage, think that it's all the things around it, right? Or could be even things like cloud functions. We protect all of them for a customer so that the entire data set can be brought back, not just the data, and then you wonder what the hell to do. Sorry to say that, but the question is there. So it's the entire stack we can help the customer protect. That's why keeping the data there. So we talked about data lakehouse and vector databases. We are happy to say we are one of the unique data protection vendors at the enterprise class, being able to protect across my different public clouds, being able to do this thing. That's a quick rundown. Any questions? Brian, Satya, Andy, I'm here. And any questions we can answer for you guys.
Hi, it's Ivan McPhee from Gigo. I have one question. Yeah, you've spoken about your customers, but can you give us some indication as to some of your top customers, the size of them, the scale they actually for HYCU?
Sure, that's a excellent thing. Point there. We have over 4,600 customers as a company. Our primary focus is, the way we would tell, is that from a volume perspective, it's our mid-market and lower enterprise. That's our primary focus area as a company. But that said, we have some of the largest. The interesting thing about HYCU is that even though we are a young company, we have a number of federal agencies. All of the U.S. Armed Forces users, not just U.S. Armed Forces, there are a bunch of other countries we can actually name. They use HYCU. And if you think in terms of large organizations protecting us, I'll throw out some things there. Customers, for example, the large pharmaceutical industry, the guys who are in the large chip making industry, or essentially I would say IT technology, in the technology space, customers with tens of thousands of employees in that particular one. We have, for example, one of our customers have 200 different sites, and they actually protect using HYCU. And one of our customers in the cloud actually has data, multiple petabytes and petabytes of data spread across 5 different regions backed up through HYCU. those are some of the samples I can tell you. That's dimension. We also have some mid-market customers with 500 mailbox users to 2,000 mailbox users, things like that. So it's a quite spectrum we actually have. And probably mention one other thing and probably stop. Sorry. For example, in some of the SaaS, we have customers running like 30,000 mailboxes and things like that. So it's a quite a big spectrum we actually have.
Yeah, I was gonna just add, Subbiah, that I think the customers that care about sovereignty and coverage, right? It's not just about being able to back up all of these workloads, but I don't want to give my copy of the data to you. I want to hold it to myself. We're one of the only SaaS solution that offers customers, full ownership of their data sets. That the control plane is delivered as a SaaS, but the data plane always sits within the four walls of their virtual boundaries, right? I mean, the, and the data always stays in customer tenant, never leaves. We don't exfiltrate that. And I think the customers that value that are typically the ones that kind of jump into this bandwagon and run with it. Why I think we have such a strong federal presence as well is that we keep the data, right where the customer can control and see and manage.
Malcolm, you had a question. Malcolm, looks like you raised your hand.
Yeah, hi there. It's Malcolm Boodin, MNB Networks. Just quite a straightforward question. Is the service available globally, everywhere, or is there any restrictions in any regions?
That's a great question, Malcolm. So our service is truly available in every part of the world. It runs on anywhere your hyperscalers run. Let's say, put it that way. Anywhere your Google, Azure, AWS can run, we actually support it. There is no restriction on that. I'll give you guys a real example. One of our customers was using 4 regions, and they wanted the new region was coming up, and for one of the hyperscalers in Mumbai, and they said, "Hey guys, there's a new region coming up, and how long will it take for you to support it?" I said, "The day when it's available, you can use it." They said, "What do you mean?" Because we obviously use their APIs and things like that, which all the cloud vendors, our system is built to truly scale like the cloud, and that's how it has enough intelligence built in to make sure the data movement within the cloud too is done extremely efficiently. And that's a big part for the customer to keep the cost in mind, because as you guys know, if you end up ever do even within hyperscalers, you guys know this, within hyperscalers, even if you move the data between regions, there is an egress cost, right? As a backup, you don't want to run one region, say, I want to back up everything. You're like, nope, you will end up paying tons of egress costs. You will just kill the budget. Don't do that. So that's where the HYCU intelligence is built in so that you can run in the right region in the right place for it.